Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to do another problem here upon request of one of the students. This is example 5-26. This is in section 5-4. It's page 290. And this is an example that deals with the multinomial distribution. Now, I did lecture on this, so I don't think it's a good use of your time for me to lecture on the multinomial distribution again. It's in it's one of the videos, section 5-4. I think it was video number 1 and 2. I think covered the multinomial distribution. But I do want to do this one particular problem just to help you through it. Now I have begged you, I've urged you very strongly, make sure you do all these examples, because if you do the examples, you're going to be able to do all the problems. So hang on one second. Okay, so this is the coffee shop problem, example 5-26. I'll let you read that. You can pause your screen and read it. Okay, so the hard part is always the same thing. You read the problem. I've been exactly in your shoes. I know exactly what you're going through. You read the problem over and over and over again. It doesn't make any sense. You're just totally stuck. You have no idea where to get started. Well, don't be that guy. Don't do that, because if you do that, you're going to be very frustrated. Follow my advice. My advice, very strong advice, is to have a system. I'm showing you mine. I've shown you mine several times here. Have a system of how you approach the problems, because then even if you have no idea up front how to do the problem, if you follow your system, you'll have the confidence. You'll just kind of walk your way through it. So please trust me on this. I haven't lied to you yet. Do it my way. Okay, let me clean this up a little bit here. Okay, so here's the problem. I'll let you read that or read it from your book. All right, and then he gives you the solution. So let me bounce out of this and go to my handwritten solution to show you the way that I approach the problem. So if I were in your shoes, as you're watching this video, have your book open and be following along. Okay, so let me pause this. Okay, so as I've shown you on other examples, my format is always the same. I write down the given. I write down all the stuff that I'm given. I write down what it is I'm supposed to find. Then I'll do like discussion and formula. Okay, and then I forgot to write it down this time, but normally then I'll write down solution. Okay, but this time I just wrote down, okay, let's plug it all in. So somewhere around there I should have written the word solution, just to keep myself organized. So if nothing else, the very first thing I can do is I can write down this format, right? I can write down what it is I'm given. So this is a coffee shop problem. Okay, I have the events. I have four different events. Event 1, Event 2, Event 3, Event 4. Now, where does this come from? Well, this is what I'm given. I'm given this information. Okay? Event 1 is the customer comes in and buys 0 coffee. He buys something else. Event 2 is customer comes in and buys 1 coffee. Event 3 buys 2 coffees, and so forth. And what we're interested in is, what's the probability that somebody buys a certain enumerated, we're going to specifically specify how many people buy how many coffees. Okay, that's the essence of the problem. Okay, now that comes from right here. It says 8 customers enter the shop. What's the probability that 2 of them will purchase something other than coffee? So that's the 0. 4 of them will purchase 1 cup of coffee, and so forth. Well, it's a math class, so we got to use math notation. We're not going to use words. We're going to use math notation. So that's where I come up with this. E1, that's the event that somebody buys 0. E2, somebody buys 1. E3 and buys 2, and so forth. And we're also given certain probabilities that that's going to occur. P1 is this, P2 is that. So all I'm doing is writing down what I'm given, but I'm writing it down in perhaps a little more organized way. Okay? All right, so those are my P's. Those are my P sub I's, as I discussed before. That's right up here. See, P sub 1, P sub 2, and so forth. Okay. All right, so I'm writing that down. Okay. And so I have a E sub 3 and I have a P sub 3. I have a E sub 2 and I have a P sub 2. Okay, so I hope that's clear. And now N is 8 because there's 8 customers that come in. So it says find the probability that out of the 8 customers who come in, we see the following exact result. Now that's the key thing here. That's what you have to understand is that you're asking what's the possibility, what's the probability, I should say, what's the probability that 2 of the 8 people buy 0, 4 of them buy 1 cup, 1 of them buys 2 cups, and so forth. And that's what these x's are. It's x sub 1, x sub 2. X sub 1 is the event 1. That's right here. He buys 0. X sub 2 is event 2, that's where he buys 1 of them. Event 2, he buys 1 of them, and so forth. Okay, so these subscripts go together. Event 4 buys 3 of them. The probability of that happening is 0.05, and X sub 4 is 1 person does that. Same thing applies here. X sub 2 is event 2. 4 of them buy 1 of them. Okay, so this first part here, the given and then the find, it just organizes things. Okay, so once you do that, then you say to yourself, okay, wait a second, this isn't that hard. I got my x's here, I got my p's up here. Okay, that looks suspiciously like a math formula. So here's my discussion and my formula. We're going to use a multinomial formula that's on page 290, and here it is. Okay, now on page 290, instead of having 4 events that it's talking about, I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this is so much harder than it looks to make these videos. Here we go. Okay, so he has k. So x sub 1, x sub 2, x sub 3, all the way up to x sub k. In our particular problem right now, this coffee shop problem, k is 4. There's 4 different events, E1, E2, E3, and E4. There's P1, P2, P3, P4. Okay, this is a generic formula. This is a formula that fits every problem. Okay, all right, so back to the problem here. Okay, so get rid of this. This is a little ad here. Okay. All right, so here's our formula. P sub x is, n factorial over blah, blah, blah. And then you get the p sub 1s, okay? So keep in mind that this let's take p sub 2. P sub 2 is the probability that event 2 occurs, which that was given to us in the problem, and I wrote it down up here. P sub 2 is 0.5, and it's raised to the power of x sub 2. X sub 2 is the requested or stipulated or the hypothesized, however you want to say it, x sub 2, how many times, that's the event of buying 1 coffee. How many times are we asking, are we postulating, or we have as a hypothesis that is happening? It happens 4 times. So if that happens 4 times, well, the probability, whatever it is P sub 2 times P sub 2 times P sub 2 times P sub 2. It happens 4 times. That's why this exponent up here is x sub 2. So it's just a matter of plugging it in. You could, I swear to you, you could do these problems while you're watching the Kardashians, because it's just plugging stuff in. The only nuance here, the only thing that I think sometimes people get a little confused is, what does this x mean? What the heck is this x right here? This big X here is, I wish I could use this term. You guys haven't seen this term. If you took Math 35, maybe you've seen this. It's what we call a K-tuple, T-U-P-L-E, a K-tuple. That's just this thing right here. What's the probability of getting this exact sequence? 2 of the event 1, 4 of event 2, 1 of event 3, 1 of event 4, okay? So what's the probability of getting this exact outcome of 2 of the first guy, the first event, 4 of the second event, 1 of the third event, 1 of the fourth event? This exact combination, I'm sorry, don't use the word combination. This exact sequence here, okay? So 2 guys by 0, 4 guys by 1, and so forth. Okay, so we're going to plug it all in into my formula. Well, as I said, I'm doing this watching the Kardashians. So here's my n factorial, here's my x1 factorial, my x2 factorial, my x3 factorial, x4 factorial. Here's my probabilities, probability 1, probability 2, and so forth. Well, now it's all over, right? I mean, you just got to plug it in. You got to calculate it. Now, you can't, this is the answer right here, okay? That's the answer. But my goodness, you wouldn't hand this into your boss, would you? I mean, your boss wants an answer. He doesn't want to have to calculate it himself. So now it's just be careful, calculate it out. So 0.3 squared, 0.5 to the fourth. What I always recommend, line up these equal signs, line up the equal signs. Everything goes straight down. So this corresponds to that, this corresponds to that, and so forth. It's 8 factorial on the top. Here it is. It's 2 factorial, 4 factorial, etc. on the bottom. Here it is. So I just crank all these suckers out. I mean, just pound them out. Use your calculator. Okay. Finally, what do you get? 0.035364. We're going to round that off because it's just more convenient to have it rounded off. And here it is, 0.0354. The reason is, see, this last digit here, we only want 4 digits. This last guy here is a 3. So do we leave it as a 3 or do we round it up? We round it up because the next guy is a 6. So that's why it's 0.0354 as desired. And that's the answer that's in the book. Okay? Okay, now let me show you one more thing here. See Table A is in the appendix, page A-1, or the regular page number is 769. That will help you calculate these factorials. For example, 8 factorial. Let me see if I can find that for you real quick here. I'm almost out of time here. I'll find it for you. You know, strangely enough, I couldn't seem to find it in the electronic version, but here's the PDF version. Here's the appendix. Okay, so here's the appendix. Table A is factorials. So this is in your book. And as you can see, try to get this in here. Okay, so 8 factorial, see, here's n, okay, so 1 factorial is 1. 3 factorial is 3 times 2 times 1, so that's 3 times 2 is 6, so that's 6, all right? Okay, so you see how this works. After a while, you can't do it in your head. Here's 8. 8 factorial is 40,320, okay? Let me close this. No, just close the current tab. Okay. 40,320. So you don't have to you don't have to have a fancy calculator. It's pretty much all the ones you need are probably in that table there. Okay, so that just makes it a little tiny bit easier for you to find that. Okay, well, I hope this helped you. It's not as hard as it looks. It all boils down to being organized, plugging the information in, and being careful. You gotta, don't try to stay organize as best you can. Line up these equal signs the way I always do it. Go straight down. Some of you kids are kind of writing all over the page, and it's impossible for you to be staying organized. You've got to automate this to where you don't even have to think about it. You just plug in the numbers. Okay, I hope this helps.